The fair complexion associated with Snow White was once deemed the fashionable and alluring standard among the English elite during the Elizabethan era. The 16th century feminine ideal was perfectly embodied by Queen Elizabeth's distinctive pale makeup, where her flawless skin conveyed both high status and worldly flawlessness. However, Elizabeth attained this seemingly perfect appearance by slathering her face with cosmetics primarily formulated from lead. Furthermore, she applied mercury to her lips and likely relied on a makeup solvent, also mercury-based, which literally corroded her skin. Our focus today is Queen Elizabeth and her barn, and the cosmetics that potentially contributed to her demise. But before we dive in, please remember to hit subscribe on the Secrets Unveiled channel, and be sure to comment below with suggestions for future historical figures you want us to discuss. Now let's commence. Her Majesty awaits. In the time of the Virgin Queen, the paramount benchmark for feminine beauty was skin that was smooth and dazzlingly white. To achieve this effect, Elizabeth utilized Venetian ceruse, a preparation of white lead mixed with vinegar. She gently applied this compound to both her face and neck, thus converting her smallpox-pitted complexion, which we will elaborate on shortly, into an unsettlingly pale porcelain mask that likely had the aroma of fermented wine. That is certainly an effective strategy for preserving one's chaste status. Because of 400 years of scientific advancements, we currently understand that the daily application of lead to the skin causes profoundly severe, frequently permanent conditions, such as hair shedding and dermal decline, not to mention fatal lead poisoning, an outcome that, in the 16th century, was undeniably absolute. This fatality likely applied to Queen Elizabeth, but lead was not the sole toxic substance present in her beauty products. We must now examine the second culprit. Snow White's mother desired more than just an ethereal child. She also wished for lips that were the vibrant shade of blood spilled upon winter roses. Crafted from cinnabar, a venomous mineral containing mercury, the actual queen's lip coloring created the unmistakable ruby mouth visible in her many unsettling portraits. Therefore, two appalling toxins were operating together, being absorbed through the skin over an extended duration. Externally, the lead base gradually eroded the queen's epidermis. As her skin degraded, Elizabeth consequently applied increasingly heavier layers of cosmetics, allegedly building up an inch-thick coating toward the conclusion of her existence. Ailments associated with mercury intoxication involve loss of memory, heightened irritability, and depressive episodes, all states that Elizabeth allegedly exhibited late in her life. This hypothesis seems increasingly plausible. During the time of Elizabeth, the aristocracy did not necessarily remove their makeup every evening. Honestly, most contemporary women have skipped this step at least occasionally. Once her attendants meticulously applied the lead and mercury products to the queen's visage, Elizabeth retained the application for a minimum of 7 days. Ignoring simple pore obstruction, the lead penetrated her skin, resulting in a gray and aged appearance. When the time came for Elizabeth to cleanse her face, historians theorize she may have employed a repulsive mixture containing powdered eggshells, alum, and, predictably, additional mercury. While some proponents insisted the mercury remover softened the skin, this effect was merely the result of the product literally flaying them layer by layer. As an adolescent, Queen Elizabeth utilized substantially less of the lead-based foundation. This wasn't just due to her youth, but because she had not yet contracted smallpox. On the 10th of October, 1562, she was afflicted by an intense fever and showed all the classic indicators of the disease. The royal court was gripped by intense anxiety, fearing Elizabeth would succumb within 7 days, but the young monarch recovered. Regrettably, the infection left her permanently marked during her tumultuous 20s, a decade often characterized by extreme highs or chaotic failures. Scars certainly don't help tilt those odds toward success. Pockmarks from smallpox were a prevalent affliction in that era, explaining why women were so keen to apply the acidic lead foundation. Mary Sidney, a trusted confidant of Elizabeth, also suffered these blemishes. Henry Sidney, Mary's spouse, recorded that the scars to her resolute discomfort ever since have done and do remain on her face. Trying to survive in an atmosphere of incessant malicious gossip, Elizabeth took every measure possible to conceal these imperfections, and safeguard her status as a virgin queen, desperate to avoid a husband who would publicly report on his wife's facial scars. Female monarchs have been rare throughout English history, and frankly, globally, a reality Elizabeth understood intimately. She was fully aware that constant scrutiny was directed toward her, and that any facial disfigurement would be perceived not as a sign of survival, but as a social outcast. In 1586, the Queen, then in her 50s, articulated the strain of these demands during a parliamentary speech. "We princes, I tell you, are set on the stages in the sight and view of all the world duly observed. The eyes of many behold our actions, a spot is soon spied in our garments, a blemish noted quickly in our doings." In a bold move anticipating modern image filtering, Elizabeth outright banned any representation of herself that she deemed unflattering. This placed a high demand on painters to be extremely imaginative. Artists were required to portray her as youthful, smooth, and pale, even as she aged. A description ironically fitting for the decaying state of human skin after years of lead-based cosmetic use. The challenge was this: portraitists needed to render Queen Elizabeth recognizably, while hiding all the scars, the drooping skin, and perhaps even the chemically compromised flesh hidden beneath that thick white facade. The renowned Darnley portrait, completed in 1575, provided the answer. This image became an invaluable template for subsequent depictions, as relieved artists reproduced its rendering of Elizabeth's features in paintings for decades thereafter. Elizabeth maintained a ferocious, lifelong struggle against the depredations of aging. Employing a wig was among her more sensible strategies. It's frightening to consider what absurd chemicals might have been used to conceal gray hair in that period. For years, this was treated like a classic, unconfirmed secret, like Shatner's famous hairpiece. Until 1599, when the Earl of Essex publicly revealed the truth, indelibly recording his astonishment upon seeing the elderly Queen's largely bare scalp, fringed only by wispy hair near her ears. We can't unsee that now. We appreciate it, Earl. During her final months, Elizabeth declined medical examinations. A court observer noted that the Queen had slipped into profound sorrow. Despite her condition, Elizabeth would not seek repose, convinced that lying down would prevent her from ever rising again. Consequently, Elizabeth remained standing for 15 consecutive hours, while her lady-in-waiting arranged cushions around the Queen to break her eventual fall. Elizabeth died on March 24, 1603. Though cancer or pneumonia are listed as potential causes, Elizabeth's decades-long use of lead and mercury-based cosmetics, applied in progressively heavier amounts, undeniably played a role in her deteriorating physical state. Following a lifetime marred by lead and mercury poisoning, Elizabeth's physical remains were highly toxic. Elizabeth Southwell, who served as one of the Queen's ladies-in-waiting, asserted that the buildup of foul gases caused Elizabeth's corpse to rupture inside its casket during the viewing. Although this report is often dismissed as being, of all things, Jesuit misinformation, exploding caskets do occur, even presently. The phenomenon is termed exploding casket syndrome, and it results from a body being sealed overly tightly. The sealed container effectively functions as a pressure cooker for the fluids and gases generated by decomposition, until, frankly, there's a good reason this phenomenon was originally attributed to spiritual malfeasance. Here is an additional gruesome detail. Although Elizabeth definitely endured the consequences of lead and mercury toxicity, she might have ultimately succumbed to septicemia, blood poisoning. In 1603, only 7 days prior to her passing, Elizabeth's physicians advised a hazardous surgical intervention. Elizabeth had worn her coronation ring continually for 45 years, since the day of her crowning. This ring started slicing into Elizabeth's already chemically weakened skin, and presumably continued to do so. Physicians informed her that the ring required surgical removal. A week thereafter, she died, and possibly detonated, depending on the historical source. Historical evidence indicates that individuals have utilized lead in cosmetics since at least the 5th century BCE. Roman Empire-era women used lead powder to whiten their complexions. By the 16th century, this mixture was recognized as Venetian ceruse, or the spirits of Saturn, Queen Elizabeth's preferred beauty product. I personally prefer a MAC product. Sadly for Elizabeth and all other historical ceruse enthusiasts, It was not officially recognized as a poison until 1634, fewer than 4 decades after her demise, a death to which the substance contributed significantly. Though the public understood that the chemicals caused hair loss and damaged the skin, humanity took a long time to grasp that we were, in fact, committing self-murder in pursuit of attractiveness. In numerous respects, this practice continues today. Whether we accept it or not, inflicting suffering and risking death for aesthetic purposes is a deeply rooted, ancient custom that still persists. What is your opinion on Queen Elizabeth's rigorous beauty regimen? Share your thoughts below, and while you're here, take a look at our other videos from Secrets Unveiled.